Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization, doing great stuff all around the state. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the week that was here on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig Fahle. Allan Lengel is back with me again this week. Nancy Derringer here as well. We go over sort of the important stories of the week. Try to toss in a little bit of humor there, here and there as well. But
don't tell them you're going to be funny. Okay?
Well, we tried to toss in. I didn't promise anything.
Okay,
so I mean, that's the important thing. You never overpromise on comedy. These are the jokes, people.
Right. We should have a thing like applause, like we're a studio audience.
Well, unfortunately, Nancy, you have this wonderful accessory that you're sporting today.
I'm sorry, I don't know what you're talking about. I've been using my phone a lot lately, and I just woke up today, and I'm like, whoa, what's going on here?
We will explain what this is about a little bit later on, but you just happen to have those, and I thought it was funny.
I do.
But let's start with some really, really important news. We almost struck back at Iran. Over their shooting down of a drone the other day, which the president has been quick to point out multiple times is unmanned.
Yeah,
if there was a man on the drone,
yeah,
well,
exactly.
That's the whole point of it being a drone. But
unless it was a Democrat, that'd be like, well, you're not going to go to war over
$120 million.
A liberal person dying.
So I want to, if somebody wants a little primer on our beef with Iran,
right.
I just want to read it. This is in the president's own words this morning. I think this is important. There's a series of tweets that came out this morning. Of course, we almost bombed Iran last night, but his first tweet today was about the hoax and the witch hunt in the New York Times, which we will talk about a little bit later. But so for those of you that need a primer on Iran, and obviously on this program, I spend a lot of time talking about foreign affairs with people who actually know what's going on in Iran. This is the president's take on it. And he starts with this morning. We're talking about potentially going to war with Iran, which is not small. He starts out with, President Obama made a desperate and terrible deal with Iran. So you got to get that personal insult in first, of course. Gave them $150 billion plus $1.8 billion in cash, which, by the way, was Iran's money. Yes. I'm just adding these things. I'm not,
It was.
Donald Trump
their
didn't
money.
say
It was
that.
money that was
money.
seized during the
Exactly.
Iran hostage crisis in 1979 or so.
And he says Iran was in big trouble, and he bailed them out, gave them a free path to nuclear weapons, and soon, instead of saying thank you, Iran yelled death to America. I'm following along so far, Mr. President. I terminated the deal, which was not even ratified by Congress, and imposed strong sanctions. They are a much weakened nation today than at the beginning of my presidency.
They don't seem to be.
There's some grammatical issues there. When they are causing major problems throughout the Middle East, now they are bust. And then he says, on Monday, they shot down an unmanned drone flying in international waters. We were cocked and loaded to retaliate last night on 3 different sites when I asked how many will die. 150 people, sir, was the answer from a general. 10 minutes before the strike, I stopped it.
Oh, what a humanitarian!
He saved 150.
He stopped because,
unbelievable.
as he said, he goes on, it's not proportionate to shooting down an unmanned drone. I am in no hurry. Our military is rebuilt, new, and ready to go. By far the best in the world. Sanctions are biting and more added last night. Iran can never have nuclear weapons, not against the USA and not against the world. So, for those of you
what a great guy. What
that
a
wanted
mensch.
a little history lesson on what's going on here, there are so many things that are unsaid in there about, Iran, put them on a path to a nuclear weapon. Every international expert I've seen talking about this suggests that the sanctions and the nuclear deal was actually having the desired effect.
Yes.
They had stopped working on advancing their nuclear program.
Right. I think one of the problems was, Netanyahu has been against that deal, and Netanyahu has got the ear of
Jared
president.
Kushner.
And it's certainly not an anti-Israel thing I'm saying, because I'm pro-Israel, but I'm also pro-Palestinian. But I think he's, I think Israel does not want to fight a war against Iran, but they'd like to have the proxy of the U.S. fighting that war.
Of course.
That's what that's.
And when I say Israel, I'm really saying Netanyahu, because Netanyahu is not popular among all Israelis, including I have cousins in Israel who do not like him at all and don't particularly find him very honest.
Sure. Well, and he's been
He's corrupt.
He's been hitting the drumbeat for war for a long time with Iran.
Right.
I mean, Netanyahu some of the props that he used in the speeches with the bomb that looked like something that Boris and Natasha would be carrying, and it's just sort of like this is a very complicated situation here. And there is nobody out there that I've seen that suggests that this would be easy, something that would be simple. And I don't think a retaliatory strike for a drone in any capacity is something that's going to all of a sudden make Iran back off. I just think that it fuels other things that are going to be happening there. And
we used to believe in diplomacy. Then we made Mike Pompeo Secretary of State. Actually,
well, and John Bolton, of course.
Yeah, and
who's
John
been talking
Bolton,
about
right.
this very thing since we started the Iraq War.
I know.
Saying, well, I should just move into Iran when we're done. I mean, it's like
yes,
this is serious business, and it was people were just like, eh.
And now we have, and apparently we discuss delicate foreign policy matters on Twitter now. So I mean, that's just how many weeks in a row have I said I have reached the end of my rope? I mean, I've really reached.
But does anybody
the
really
rope is
think?
Way up there now.
Does anybody really think that it was until 10 minutes before he decided to do this that he learned about the casualty estimates? Those would have been in every single report that he was given.
Of course.
About here are our
Unless
options.
he may not have read it and said, "Oh yeah, by the way,
how many people might die?"
It's sort of an afterthought and went, okay.
Was it in picture form in his briefing book
Yeah,
though?
yeah,
Because
right.
I don't know. It's like maybe little cartoons with crosses for eyes.
But
I don't know.
it's interesting. I think Iran. I mean, we've created such a distrust there. It's like, yes, we had a deal with Iran that was not perfect, but a lot of people
but it was
thought
a step in the right
it was
direction.
a step in the right direction and a good one. And there's mixed opinions out there. And there were a lot of retired Israeli generals who thought it was a good deal. There's certainly room for Iran to violate that, but now there's bigger room, and we don't really need to. I mean, we need to use diplomacy when we can, and not take it off the table and then start rattling sabers. It's we have to realize that it's a different mentality in the Middle East. It's like they don't care if you think you have a more powerful army or whatever it is. They have God, and God plays into the the equation there. And I think that was the thing when the Bush administration, Condoleezza Rice, who was an expert in Russia, which has a much different mentality than some of the more religious zealot countries.
Say that would be the zealots case though, because I mean, was it Napoleon who said God is on the side of the strongest battalion? I believe it was. And it's like, I mean, yeah, you can have God on your side, but it's like it always helps to have a few F-15s warming up on the tarmac.
People, I mean, look, people are wanting more give up their lives. I mean, there's what
Well, some are. Not all of them.
Not all. I mean, look, there's a lot of people in the Middle East.
There are an awful lot of secular Israelis too, right?
Hamas, who want peace. There's a lot of Israelis, including my cousins, in Israel, who live outside of Tel Aviv and in Haifa, who want peace.
All right, but it seems that we are sort of out on a limb here because again, our allies, particularly the French, have been trying to find a way to keep
cheese-eating surrender monkeys. Yeah, right. Yeah,
to keep this deal in place,
right?
And work with them. I mean, look, Europe needs some of these supplies. Iran has some customers out there, but the U.S. is going to be sort of out on a limb if they decide to go this way. Of course, Netanyahu will be on their side, and so will the Saudis. But the Saudi relationship isn't exactly sweet right now. You finally have Congress pushing back on some of these arms sales because of the death of Jamal Khashoggi. They're actually starting to take it seriously and think about punishing Saudi Arabia. So who's going to have the U.S.'s back if this escalates? And what does it turn into? Because Russia is not going to be very happy with this. China is not going to be very happy with this.
Yeah, we could end up in a total proxy war over a $150 million drone. So, go figure. This is like we are living in the dumbest possible world right now. If there are parallel worlds, well, yes, it is terrifying.
And the fact is, and I apologize to anybody who may be offended by this, but I don't have a lot of faith in the commander in chief to make rational decisions on this. He has not shown himself able to do so.
Would you say some more offensive things like that? Because I mean, that is about the mildest way to say that the country is being driven by a lunatic, and I mean, and a headstrong, stupid, ignorant, insecure lunatic as well. And it's just,
bumper sticker diplomacy. I'm surprised he doesn't have like an Ayatollah Assahola T-shirt.
Yeah.
It's like you've seen those before.
I remember those. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember those from pro wrestling.
Exactly. But I'm really concerned about this. I mean, I have a 19-year-old son. He's in college, and I don't really worried about the draft at this point in time, but. There's a lot of young people out there that really should be worried about this. And it's as if we've learned nothing from the last 15 years that we've been dealing with Afghanistan and Iraq. I mean, yes, because this is one thing the region needs is a little bit more destabilization.
Well, and part of the reason that we haven't dealt with it is because we do have a all-volunteer, small fighting force, technologically advanced army. I mean, one of the things, I'm sure you watched the Ken Burns Vietnam movie that was it last year, maybe a year before? I mean, it was outstanding, but I lived through this, but I was a child, and the troop numbers that were being called up and sent over on a regular basis through the 60s, through this escalation, were just mind-boggling. 59,000. I mean, we did have a draft then. And kids were being, I mean, you knew people who were fighting over there, and they were fighting a stupid war that wasn't worth it, and 59 million or 1,000 of them died along the way, and so, as long as I'm just spluttering here, but I mean, as long as people feel like it's not their problem, they're going to continue to kind of shrug about this stuff. I mean,
and then of course, thank the troops when they return.
I'm so sick of that. I am so sick of that. It's just this cynical BS, and I'm not going to give you. You already said one swear, so you're already going to have to put an E on this podcast. But I mean, I just can't handle this anymore.
Because I don't know if that was an actual word. It doesn't show up in the dictionary.
No, it doesn't. You're right. So all right. So I'm going to shut up now because it just makes me. I'm going to get high blood pressure too.
We did hint at the New York Times and him tweeting about the New York Times. And the president is citing a story in Judicial Watch, a guy named Tom Fitton.
Oh, yeah, Judicial Watch. There's an impartial source.
Yeah, not at all impartial source. But who is arguing that the New York Times sending emails about stories they were writing to the FBI is somehow feeding the FBI information to go after Trump. And they're suggesting that this is somehow against the law, a violation of the law, when in reality, all the reporter is doing is trying to get confirmation of what they found out in their reporting from the agency. Hey, we heard this. Is this true? FBI typically doesn't respond to that sort of stuff, but they may have or may not have. But the reporter doing their job by actually going to the source to say, can you confirm this or deny this?
Yeah.
Well, it was Arthur Sulzberger who wrote a column, I think, in the Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal, yeah.
Talking about Trump stepping over the line by accusing the New York Times of treason.
Well, they're calling it FBI media collusion.
Really, the treason is trying to sabotage the media, trying to eliminate the media. And I put if I can find this, I put a little quote from the former leader of Germany.
The guy with the funny mustache.
Yeah, the guy with the funny mustache. I'm glad they retired that. You never see that mustache out there anymore.
It's like the name Adolf is not real popular these days.
He ruined that mustache forever. and really, the name even Adolf is not.
Even the most ardent hipsters wouldn't dare.
It's not very popular. Although a good friend of mine is named Adolf. Go figure. But if I can.
You don't have to look it up.
Yeah, but anyways, it's I mean, it's basically in Mein Kampf where Hitler attacks the press and says the press is like aggressively sabotaging society and nationalism and the arts and really just undermining what we're trying to do, and it's so
not
similar.
Understanding our bigger vision for this beautiful country.
Yeah. Right. Reading the same script.
Right, and it's the same script, and it's like it's so disturbing, and people say, no, he's not Hitler, and yes, he's not Hitler in 1938, but in 1930, I mean, there's some similar things. It's disturbing commonality there.
Well, this is a revealing comment, and I had not read this before today, and I was reading a story in the paper, but James Comey, in some of his testimony about this whole thing, recalls a conversation that he had with the president, who was talking about leaks and wanting reporters thrown in jail for accepting these leaks. And here's the quote. Trump told James Comey, he said, quote, "I'd love to have reporters spend a couple days in jail, make a new friend, then they're ready to talk."
Wow,
I
make
mean,
a new
so
friend.
Hello,
all
right.
friend.
Yeah, there you go. Go to jail. And making a joke about prison rape here, and then of course suggesting that'll soften him up and make him ready to talk. Right?
Yeah,
Here's a quote from Mein Kampf, and it says, "It is the press above all which wages a positively fanatical and slanderous struggle, tearing down everything which can be regarded as support of national independence, cultural elevation, and the economic independence of the nation."
Can you imagine having a leader of a country who could write a sentence like that?
Certainly, you wouldn't see that in a tweet, but
hey, he was a hell of a public speaker.
But the theme is, and actually, while he was announcing his reelection bid, he started talking about the fake press, and he says they're going to say, he goes, there's a couple empty seats over there. They're going to say, we couldn't fill it up, and then the camera on Colbert last night, the camera pans the whole auditorium, and there's hundreds, if not, I don't know how many.
20,000.
There were probably thousands of empty seats.
Oh, empty seats. Okay,
Yeah.
there were. I was told the attendance was 20,000.
Was it 20,000?
Yeah.
But and I don't know what the
Bruce Springsteen can draw that kind of crowd.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as of some months ago, a armed guard was stationed outside the newsrooms of the Free Press and the Daily. I'm sorry, the Free Press and the Detroit News. Yeah, excuse me. That's Detroit News. The Detroit News.
You can remember that.
And it's like, that is a precaution that makes perfect sense now. I mean, I remember when you used to be able to walk into a newsroom and talk to the reporters, talk to the editors, and now, thanks to our commander-in-chief, this is the situation now. And I think about it. I mean, my husband works over there, so I think about that a lot.
Well, we got a comment from James here on the page right now. It says, MSNBC and CNN is not the free press. And I'm sorry that it is.
Yes, it is.
It is.
What makes
it doesn't
them not
matter
the free
which
press?
channel you like to watch.
Ask
they
James
all have the
to
right
elaborate
to do
on
what they're
that
doing.
if you
Yeah,
think.
James, if you want to fill us in on what you mean by that, I'd love to know it. But look, the New York Times is who he's going after on this one, and Time Magazine too. He's really ticked off at Time Magazine.
Oh yeah,
right
he
now.
threatened to throw that guy in prison.
Yeah,
so,
yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
going on. Well, look,
Can we move on?
we are going to move on. We are going to move on because
something funny.
there could be a new leader in the station.
I would like to raise. We were talking about this yesterday, and the headline is. And I had somebody else. You mentioned the headline, and I had a friend last night mention the headline to me, and say, "Oh my God, it reminded me of when this friends reminded me when I worked at the Free Press. I don't know, maybe in the '80s or something." And the headline was, "The Coney customer gets angry over no fried mushrooms.
Yes.
Shoot bystander waiting for cheeseburger." And it's out of the
very
Onion.
Edna Buchanan kind of story.
And
there.
it's out of the Onion, but I said, it's a headline out of the Onion, but it's like it says something about the level of mental health issues here for like some 18-year-olds to come into Coney Island and say, "I want fried mushrooms," and they say, "Sorry, we don't. It's not on the menu." And they're like, "What kind of Coney Island doesn't have?"
mushrooms?
And they come back.
I've
and
never
they start,
been to one.
And probably because they can't reach the employees who are behind bulletproof glass, they start beating on the customers and shoot one of the customers in the jaw.
Right.
And you're thinking, like, how disturbing of a mentality is that, and how much like mental illness is out there that we are dismissive of.
Well, given that this happened at 2:30 in the morning, I think drunkle illness might be more.
Yeah.
But this, you're right though. You're right, and I thought that was an interesting. If you read the another good story that we ran this week, which was the Motor City 911, the scanner guy, the guy who listens to the scanner and tweets interesting stuff. Up in Lapeer County, he's a retired cop from California, and he said, the problem with crime is mental illness. He said there's not enough treatment of and there's not enough attention paid to mental health in this country. And every time there's a mass shooting and whatever, somebody pays some lip service and, well, we gotta beef up mental health. It's like, well, okay, you ready to go? I mean, let's start the discussion.
Well, yeah,
and it starts with a lot of money. So.
Shifts. The discussion will shift from one to the other, saying, no, it's not easy access to guns. It's mental health, or vice versa. But it's a combination of.
Right. Sure.
And,
of course.
I mean,
it's never complex problems. Never have some.
I mean, people who have mental health issues and are easily walking in. They're fed up with their job and deciding
they want some fried mushrooms. Damn it!
They hate their boss.
Yeah.
People have fantasies of that all the time, but rational people just leave it as a fantasy.
Mm-hmm. I've never been to that Coney, and they said the whole staff was behind plexiglass. So is this like a walk-in Coney where you walk in and you?
It has counter. Yeah, it's walk-in. It has counter.
It's not
late night. I wouldn't be shocked if they retreat back behind the bunker.
Yeah,
there's a lot of places in the city, really. I mean, particularly at night.
Yeah. Right. Sure.
Well, I should remind folks, this is the week that was on Deadline Detroit. I'm Craig Fahle. Allan Lengel is here. Nancy Derringer is here. You know who's not having a great week? And we talked about this president. There could be a new president elected in 2020. We'll see. The Democrats have a whole lot of candidates on the other side. The front runner thus far has been Joe Biden since he announced. Obviously, the knives are out for him right now. They're starting to see if there's some weaknesses there.
It would help if he was not running the whetstone that was sharpening them and then handing them around to all the people.
Exactly. I mean, everybody's like, well, it's just a matter of time before Joe Biden says something stupid. And he got caught up a little bit this week in talking about his past relationships, deal-making relationships in Congress with segregationist, Dixiecrats.
Right.
These are guys that were in his caucus.
Open racists.
Open racists, yeah. People that talk about, the whites being the superior race. I mean, these guys were not hiding it. And he's saying, look, I didn't like what they said, but I had to make deals with these people, and I was able to do it, which I guess he was trying to say that he could make deals across the aisle.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
that's a bad illustration of that.
Well, it's a bad understanding of where the caucus is and the party is.
Well,
right now.
That's the other thing. And he's saying,
you don't make deals with white supremacists. That's not what you shouldn't be proud of that.
Yeah, is he saying I'm willing to make these deals going forward if you elect me president? I mean, I understand what he's saying.
What he's saying, if I can make deals with white supremacists, I can certainly make deals with the GOP.
Kim Jong-un. Well, that's exactly it. Yeah. But at the same time, it also showed. I think it showed off his age in a way that. Not good for him. And I don't want to be ageist on this whole thing, but again, times are different.
We've got a lot of old candidates out there. Look, we've got a president who's in his 70s.
Yeah.
We've got, Elizabeth Warren is probably 72 or
She's
something
in her 70s, yeah.
And then, Bernie Sanders and then Joe Biden. And it's a stressful job. I don't know how the heck anybody in their 70s can withstand that kind of stress.
And I think there's a lot of, and I think that's why there's a significant youth movement behind some of the younger candidates.
I mean, Obama was what, like 46?
He was in his 40s, yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
you want somebody who's like
intellectual,
old enough and smart enough to have some not just knowledge and intelligence, but wisdom.
There's plenty of people who are wise beyond their years,
right?
Who are certainly in their 40s and even in their 30s.
But I mean, like, what is it? Pete Buttigieg is what, 37?
Yeah,
I mean, he's barely old enough to be president. He's running for president. So.
Yeah, remember? I mean, they said John Kennedy was too young as well.
Yeah,
at the time.
I know.
That was
And how old was he? Was
40.
40, I think.
Yeah.
So
I mean, look, there's a lot of bright people and capable people out there. I mean, there's something to be said about life experiences and age being there. Yeah. And I think that's why what was appealing about Obama was that he was so young and he had Joe Biden, and so that combination,
right. Yeah,
well, and he was the balance then.
Yeah, he was the balance, right? Exactly.
I think it's
12 years ago.
Unfortunately, it's dangerous to be the front runner so early on.
It is.
People are just working.
You have a
that
target.
First debate's coming. That first debate's coming, and I mean, we are so far out, and they've got now so many candidates. There's going to be 2 different debates. So if you saw the draw, it looks like most of the front runners are in one camp, and the other one's stacked with some lesser knowns. And it was a random draw apparently. But are you guys going to watch? Is this something you're going to be paying close of attention to right now?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I'll watch that.
And we've got another one coming up in July here in Michigan. Which should be
that one's
interesting.
going to be great. Yeah.
Well, it's an important state. I mean, Michigan's going to get a lot of attention.
It's great that they're having.
By the way, campaign commercials, you can send them to Deadline Detroit.
It's like, get Bernie Sanders into the backyard of the old Miami. That's all I want to see.
Well, that is actually a cool little project that we'll get to a little bit later, maybe. But I think it's going to be interesting to see these people traipsing around Michigan, and whether or not any of these candidates is going to sort of find that sweet spot to counter that sort of populist message that a lot of rural Michigan voters bought into with President Trump. I don't know if they are or not, but in the meantime, I mean, can Biden fix this sort of gaffe, or is this the kind of thing that's going to?
I don't know. I think he's going to keep making them. I mean, for him to of all the ways that you could illustrate,
because
I believe in bipartisanship. to choose those two guys and to choose that era and to say and to look back on it as though it was this rosy time, like, oh, I remember when I used to talk and they never called me boy. Did he actually said that they never called me boy. I mean,
he called me son.
They didn't call you boy because you were white.
Yeah, because you're. I mean, it speaks to an utter tone deaf.
He is. I mean,
Deafness.
that's Joe Biden. I think you have to accept. Are these comments going to be fatal? That's the question. Joe Biden's not going to stop, making these comments here and there. He doesn't get it.
No.
But he is a smart guy.
But right now he's
a
like
personal guy. But
he's the horse that comes out of the gate in the Belmont Stakes and immediately opens a forward-length lead. And it's like, that's a long race, buddy. You're not going to make it. Unless you're Secretariat. And I don't think Joe Biden is Secretariat.
Now we shall see. Yeah. We shall see.
Joe Biden's been in Washington so long. I think he doesn't get in. He's been surrounded by so much adulation for so long that he thinks he can say what he wants, and it's can bite you, particularly during a campaign. I mean, one little thing is suddenly like you turn on the news and it's like, and Joe Biden is in trouble, and the campaign is in shambles, and that's the headline. I mean, that's going to be the way it is for the next. And
they're entering the backstretch, and he's starting to flag.
So all right, let's take a look at a couple of stories here real fast that are on our site. Dana Nessel told the Civil Rights Commission, the Michigan Civil Rights Commission, to ignore Bill Schuete's opinion on LGBTQ rights when he basically said, you cannot give protection to LGBTQ people when it comes to job firings and things like that under the Elliott-Larsen Civil Rights Act. And a lot of people have been suggesting that that's something that the legislature needs to take up to include these protections in the law. Dana Nessel just said, you know what, go ahead. Take a look at these cases, investigate whether or not somebody was improperly fired from their job if these complaints come to you. Ignore my predecessor's ruling on this question. And I guess my question for the two of you is, does she undercut her own legal opinions going forward if indeed she's suggesting that it's okay to ignore somebody else?
She's getting into you're asking a legal question here, basically, which is, I mean, that's kind of coming up in the Supreme Court with, I think Clarence Thomas has essentially said, hey, there's no reason we can't go back and some of these bad decisions we've been making lately and overthrow a few of those, which, that's under the rule of stare decisis, that's those things are supposed to stand.
That sort of bedrock principle of our jurisprudence system.
Exactly.
Well, I guess, I mean, my question would be, do we need to, you have a Civil Rights Commission, which is supposed to be protecting the rights of various groups, and particularly minorities.
Of everybody.
Of everybody.
Yeah. Right.
And so do they have to, is that the only law that they can go to and say, okay, this isn't applicable, so don't protect, anybody who's gay or lesbian or
I mean, she
or
can say
she
can. I think she's completely justified in weighing in and saying, I believe that he
erred.
He erred. Yes, he made a mistake in this decision.
Right.
And certainly, I think most people would even agree with her that he probably made a mistake.
I would assume she looked at the legality of it too.
Yeah, she's not dumb.
And what the commission can do and what its oversights are. I mean, I don't think she just said, yeah, screw Bill Schuete.
Yeah.
that creep. I'm not. I mean, I think there was something more to it than just an arbitrary like.
Yeah.
Hey, just a quick update here on a story that Deadline actually broke the other day. Dan Gilbert has been discharged from the hospital. We found that out the other day. Violet Economova actually found that out the other day. And, apparently he's been transferred to a rehab facility. We don't have any real updates on his condition, but man.
3 weeks in the hospital is a long time.
It is a long time. And I mean, a lot of people are wondering, all right, we've got a huge reliance on this one guy for what's going on in downtown Detroit. I mean, at what point is it okay to have these conversations about whether or not this is healthy or unhealthy?
Well, and that'll be an interesting one going forward because there is no organization in town that is more paranoid about its press coverage than Bedrock and the whole Gilbert.
I disagree.
The Illich.
I think the Illiches.
Yeah, the Illiches.
And the Maroons.
I think the Illiches are in the early 20th century. I think Bedrock is very conscious.
Well, the Illiches don't talk, and Bedrock doesn't talk a lot. But when they do talk, if they don't like what you write about them, your boss is going to hear about it. And I know reporters who have been, in their their microscope before, and it's not a pleasant place to be, and they play as hard as anybody does. I mean, they don't believe, I mean, they think that they have the absolute right to control every single aspect of their public image, including that which is observed by, you know, people who are not connected with them at all. A free press.
And
exactly.
the Detroit News.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I think we absolutely have to have this conversation. You know, I don't know if anybody, I think most media outlets did not quote the letter that went out, but the letter essentially, I mean, it was like something from the Chinese Communist Party. You know, it was like, "Dear leader is on the road to recovery," and then the rest of it was just, "And this is how great the entire company is doing. Oh my gosh, it's amazing! It's going to be so great. You know, let's go team. You know, we're gonna." And it didn't answer any of those questions.
I think the company has a lot of very competent people there at the top. There's no question. But
I've done some work with them in the past on a couple of projects, and
they were smart. They're very smart.
With.
They're a very smart organization. The question is, though, is Dan Gilbert the gambler, the guy who says, "Let it roll, let's do that," and is there going to be that boldness out there,
right.
or are they going to pull back? And my guess is, he's a gambler. I mean, and he's a visionary. I mean, they may have vision, but they may not have that gambling gene worth jumping out a little step further. So I would think we're going to see a little bit more of a conservative approach at some point.
Well, let's see how. I mean, I would like to know an honest assessment of how he's doing, because we've heard a lot of rumors. But, you know, is he going to be able to do this work again? I mean,
I think he's going to be. I think from what we've heard from multiple people, I think he's not going to be a very active player for
a while.
Well, strokes are notoriously, and everyone is different, right? Everybody's impacted a little differently by these. They can be severe. I mean, he's fortunate that he was in the hospital when it happened. Probably saved his life. But
the guy's driven. I mean, there's no question. If somebody can come back,
it could be an inspiring story if they do it. I mean, so giving people a reason and some sort of glimpse as to where he is, it's not a bad thing. I don't think.
I think, I mean, he's a very driven guy, and I'm sure he's very driven to get back to, you know, what he was, and the question is, what
can he do that?
Can he do that? Right. But who knows? It could be one of those.
We've got just a minute left here, and I need to explain the horns. Okay. There was a story in the Washington Post.
These are so light.
They're starting to look.
I wear these.
They grow on you
on Halloween, and they really do. They
so literally
light.
Do grow on you. Apparently,
yes. Apparently, that is the story.
This is the story. So, according to medical researchers, they're finding that a lot of young people are having some neck pain and things like that. They're actually developing little horns that are growing out of the back of their neck.
Bone spurs
on your neck, as a result of looking like this down at your phone all day.
Right.
And they're saying, especially when you start young, you've been doing this for so long, that this is sort of, we're watching human evolution actually happen right here. And at some point, are we going to be like some sort of Star Trek monster with a horn sticking out of the back of our neck, 100,000 years from now because of this thing? But that was kind of creepy. And,
it is.
The best comment I got, and I posted it on my Facebook page the other day, and the best comment said, like, raise your hand if you check the back of your neck. And everybody's exactly it. But I mean,
it is.
That's pretty. You know, if I'm a tech company, I'm going to find a way that people can utilize my thing without having to stare down.
I rode on the
Google Glass. Wasn't that what's going to solve the problem?
Yeah, that was Google Glass. I rode in on the bus today. And I usually spend a lot of my time Twittering, reading Twitter and that kind of thing. And I did on this ride too, but I consciously put it away, and I said, I'm just going to look out the window. I'm going to hold my head erect, and I'm going to look out the window. I'm going to look at my fellow bus riders, and I'm just going to live in the moment. And it was a pleasant ride in. I mean, I should do that more.
I take the bus. I take the bus as well. We take the same route often, and I've just been putting on my headphones, and I took a nice little nap on the way home.
Oh man,
that was great. You can't do that while you're driving. By the way,
you really can't. No,
it doesn't work. Well, all right. That is the week that was. There's obviously a lot of stuff we did not get to, but I want to thank Nancy Derringer and Allan Lengel once again, and everybody here at Deadline Detroit, Michael Lucido for engineering the broadcast. Go to deadlinedetroit.com. Check out all the stuff we've got, coverage of all the news happening around the region, and we put it out there. Lots of original reporting as well, and Deadline TV. The Zip is going to be on a little bit later today, the week that was. And just a quick heads up. On Monday, on my podcast, I've got an interview with a guy named Greg Schwartz, former FBI agent, who has been been following the White Boy Rick story longer than anybody, knows him better than just about anybody.
Right.
I talked to him yesterday, and I'm going to air it on Monday. Really great conversation. Interesting guy with a lot of stuff that you're going to want to hear. Okay. So that's going to be on Monday's show. So hopefully you'll check that out. And also going to be following up on some of the municipal finance stuff and road financing projects that I'll be working on. So there's a lot of stuff to talk about. Those are
actually, don't be put off by the topic. I listened to one of them, and I thought, Craig really hits the sweet spot between simple enough to understand if you're a layman, but not so simple that you oversimplify it.
Thank you.
Right there.
It's important stuff. Like I said, it may not be the sexiest subjects in the world, but it's stuff that actually
really
matters.
Important.
It's really, really important.
Nancy Pelosi.
There you go. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy your Friday. It is gorgeous outside. Take advantage of this fantastic weekend we're going to have here in Michigan. I think we deserve it after all.
Oh, right? God, yes. All right.
All right. Take it easy, everybody.
All righty.
Hey, the Craig Fahle Show on Deadline Detroit is made possible by Samaritas, which is the state's largest private foster care and adoption agency. But they do a heck of a lot more than that. They've been serving homeless families, persons with disabilities, abused and trafficked women. They're also one of the largest resettlement agencies in the state. They provide market rate and affordable housing for seniors and HUD housing for families. And they also have skilled nursing, memory care, and rehab communities in Grand Rapids, Cadillac, and Saginaw. Samaritas, thanks for their support. Great organization doing great stuff all around the state.